Mechanical Lab 5B Part 2. Hi, Joe Cerrone here. I'm going to draw the side view of this bolt pattern, and as I look at it, I kind of think I'm going to clean this area up so I can make sure that I can read this number a little easier, and then I'm going to put it on the title block. But the right side view is pretty straightforward. What we have is a section view which shows that this part would be sliced in half through this cutting plane line. The arrows indicate the direction of sight, and so we would be looking in the direction of the arrows, and so we would be looking from here this way, and what we would see would be the holes, and we would be able to see where the negative space is on this drawing. Now this bolt pattern is a 1/2 inch diameter, and so these lines, the distance is going to be 1/2 inch between them. Alright, so let's get started. We'll come back to our drawing. And one thing I do want to do is I do want to clean this up a little bit. I just want to do this, and here's a technique. AutoCAD is a lot like a hand drafting tool, and so you can come in here and you can make these modifications like this, where I'm going to just draw a square around it. I'm going to say trim, cutting edge, enter, and then I'm going to trim this out of it, and then my text is not covered up by the cutting plane line, and so it's allowed. When we would draw with a pencil, we would do things like this all the time. The automation of the technology kind of has a tendency to do things like draw the lines right over the dimensions, and so good drafting techniques can alleviate that if you have an understanding of them. And again, this area too, I'm going to clean that up, and so I'll draw a little square here, and then I'll say trim, click on that, hit enter, and I'll trim that out, and then I'll get rid of that, and I'll do the same here. And now that's not to say that every drawing has to have this level of detail. I'm just showing tips and tricks as we go through and work on this. Is there going to be a big problem if I didn't do this when they manufacture? No, not really. Alright, we're going to draw the side view of it, and so we'll look at this drawing, and what it's basically saying is it's 1.5 inches by 7. I'll come back to the drawing, and I'll project over those lines. I'm going to go make the object line active. I'm going to select line, and in my O snaps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select quadrant. So I'm going to enable quadrant, and I think I turned off my line weight, so I'm going to enable my line weight. If you turn off the line weight, it looks like this. If you turn on the line weight, it looks like this. Much easier to read. So now that I have quadrant enabled, what I'll do is I'll hover, acquire, and you can see since I have my polar snapping on, I can just track that. And then I can go over here and I can say 1.5, enter. I can come down, hover, acquire, track, bring that back until there we go. And then we'll go over this way. Again, it's called swiping, and this is called direct distance, where it allows you to use the computer rather than having to re-input the dimensions all the time. It's a little bit close, and so I'm going to move it over just slightly. Turn on my snap, F9, and by doing that, I can kind of keep things lined up on the grid pattern. I'm going to go and do the same thing with this. Acquire it, bring it over, drop it down here, and I believe that was 0.5, and so I'm going to try that 0.5, and then come down, and you could always acquire it the regular way, which would be to draw a line over it. Yes. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing for these lines here. They're going to go and they're going to translate to the corners, and this is what's known as orthographic projection. In other words, what we want to do is we want to be able to project our object lines from one view to the other. Everything should line up, and that's how we get this, what they would call like a glass box, where it was like the part was put in a box and then we'd be looking at it from the side view. I'm going to bring these back. Okay, I can trim it, and so I'll say trim, and I'm going to say cutting plane line, enter, and then I'm going to trim these back. I'm going to bring over the holes, and when I do that, I'm going to go on a center line layer and just directly take them right from the center, and I'm going to bring them right to there. And I'm just going to bring the two, which would be at the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock position. And then I like to use these grips. These grips are the best as far as like when you get into being able to just work with line types. I'm going to go and offset these lines 0.25 to each side. And then I'm going to change the layer they're on by enabling grips on them, and then selecting the layer, and I'm going to put them on the object line. And then again, I can either use trim, or I can just go and grab them with a grip, pull them back in. Whoops, U for undo. Trim probably would have been faster, but I'm not always looking to do things faster. It's the accuracy of the drawing that is what counts. Alright, so that is my side view. The only thing that's missing is the hatch pattern and this line here. And so let's take a look at that again. I do have that line. So we're going to go to the hatch layer, and I thought I had a hatch layer, but apparently I do not. So I'm going to create one. And so I'm going to go and say, I'll start on the layer 0. I'll say layer properties, and I'll say new layer, and it'll copy everything from that. And so I'm going to tweak down the line weight to 0.15 millimeters, and then I'll leave it as continuous, and a color will be gray. And then I'll rename that hatch. H-A-T. Old school, we used to name everything 3 letters, and then we would type in things on the keyboard. And I still like those methods. I find they work well. We'll go to the hatch pattern, boundary hatch command. We'll choose the hatch pattern. I'm not sure if it's specified. It is not. And so when we look at the hatch patterns in AutoCAD, they relate to different material types. ANSI 131 would be American National Standards Institute 131, which basically goes into the type of steel it is and the carbon content. But for now, I'm just going to choose that's my pattern, and if I hover, what it'll do is it will detect the boundaries, and then I'll click, 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 and close the hatch pattern. And that will apply that hatch pattern to the drawing. I'll take a look at the dimensions. We've got 4 dimensions to put on. When we come back into it, we're going to go back to AutoCAD, and then if I put this dimension, I'll go to the dimension layer, and I'll go, let's go ahead and use the automatic one. Endpoint, endpoint, we'll bring that down, 1.5. Now again, I want the decimal places to be increased, and so I can, and let's just stay in here and do the other one while we're here. There we go. I'm going to turn off my grid. It's a little easier to read. There we go. And I believe we have this one here. Now all the dimensions are 3 decimal places of precision, which is fine. We did update that in our last drawing example. Lastly, we're going to put this on the title block and fill out the title block. So this drawing is in model space. Good idea to save it. We'll do a file save as, or we can click on the save as button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to name it my initials dash lab 5B, and I'll just put that on the desktop. Alright, click on the tab for the title block and you'll be changed over to what's called paper space. Double click in the viewport, and then if we turn the wheel on the mouse we can adjust the magnification level. If we look at the drawing we can see that the scale is 3/4 equals 1 foot, and 1 inch, excuse me, 3/4 of an inch equals 1 inch, 0.75 equals 1. So we'll come back here and then we'll choose our scale, which will be not on here. Okay, these are not the same. These are architectural. If I say 3/8 equals a foot or 3/4 equals a foot, it's microscopic, and so would be nice, but it's not. If I go 1/2 inch or half scale or full scale, it almost fits at full scale. So what do? Well, we have to create a custom scale. And so what we want to do is we want to come in here and we want to say custom, and let's see before I do it, custom, and we'll say add, and we'll say 0.75 equals 1, and then we'll say drawing units. I think we want 0.75 here. Let's see if this is correct. Okay, okay, and then we'll choose it. Backwards. Try it one more time, and we'll go back to custom, and let's get rid of that. Let's see if we can delete it. Let's edit it, and it won't let me do it. So let's go and add, and we'll say 3/4 equal 1, and we'll say 0.75, and we'll say OK, and I think I can purge this out, and we'll say OK, and then we'll choose it, 3/4 equal 1. There we go. And you can see I've got a little bit of work to do to get the dimension to fit in there. I'm going to lock the dimension, and then I'm going to go to model space, and I'm just going to ring this one in a little bit, and then I'm going to come back, and we're good. I'm going to fill out the title block, double click outside of the viewport, and I'll say 3/4 equals 1. Make sure you put your name on it, and double click on that and go to the end, 5B. Okay, so this completes our exercise. Now there is a little bit of a problem with the line types, and this is sort of a common thing, and it's not really addressed right away in the book. To get the line weights to display properly, or the line types, what you have to do is you have to type in PSLTSCALE, paper space line type scale, and turn it off or set it to 0, and then regen, and now we get our line weights the way that we want them. And that's sort of a technique that you need to do to scale the line weights properly or the line types properly in AutoCAD. Alright, I'll save it again. Save as 5B. Yep. And this completes this video tutorial.